Hi again, everybody. It is Wes with Pikes Peak Trades and giving you a summary here of trading that finished the week that just ended December 11th. And I want to take you through, as I usually do, my stocks A to Z rundown. We'll begin with weekly charts. I will be showing in kind of a fair minded way how the Elliott wave counts out there do have some suggestings that there are valid bull and bear counts. I think I'm going to show you that the weight of the evidence and the potential setups would have made it worth it for you to enter some trades Friday in anticipation that we could potentially see some really explosive moves early in the week that's going to be starting December 14th. So let's look at the S&P 500 weekly. There's nothing concerning about this weekly chart. I would have been very concerned if this weekly candle had pierced beneath the low of last week, which is at about 35.94. Um, Bears absolutely had the chance to do that on Friday. The futures were down, ES futures down to about 36.20, and I was thinking this could be the push that the Bears had, and it didn't happen. So because of that, we're seeing here a weekly higher low and higher high. We are extended from the 8-week EMA, but not in a way that would cause me concern. You'll see something similar in QQQ. Now you saw that red arrow pointing downward on the RSI on the S&P 500. That is kind of the only technical thing that I'm really concerned about. Yes, there is a valid bear count, and if the market has decided that next week it wants to go full bear, I think it's going to be significantly down. I'll show you that setup when we get into the short-term counting. But as far as other technicals, I just don't think it's there. From an Elliott wave perspective, yes, we would have a mature, completed 5-wave pattern from the March lows. But I still think the evidence is suggesting that in something here like QQQ, we're going to see by the end of the month QQQ approaching maybe the 330 mark and possibly extending a bullish run into early 2021 into targets that might really surprise people. Let me get back here or just keep going through the weeklies. Before I get into the individual names, let's take a look at small caps here using IWM. Piercing up against that upper rail. You might say, well, that means it's due for a pullback. Possibly, yes, but it's also possible that we're just establishing a more aggressive bull channel. There is no divergence at all in place on the RSI. Now, the weekly RSI 9 is at 77, which is a little bit overheated. So again, the possibility is there that if we do see a bearish move, the Elliott wave count is suggesting that I've got this here in a potential minor 4. But based on some of the pullback on the daily chart that I'll show in a bit, I still think there's a good chance for bullish continuation. Into XLF here. So XLF with an inside week. So I've said before, inside candles are usually good for bullish continuation in the direction of the trend. And that would be my call here again on this inside week candle for XLF that I think will have financials resolving itself upwards, possibly getting all the way back to their early 2020 high, which was at about 31.30. That would certainly be really confirming for the bull market going forward if that would happen. Okay, let me just go ahead and just since I'm on this tab, show you a little bit of concern in my bullishness on miners. So this weekly candle right here has the look of a gravestone doji, and it does make me wonder if there's possibly one last down leg in metals and miners. You would rather see a candle like that at the bottom of a move, not in trying to confirm a breakout. So I'm a little hesitant there on miners, but I would say in general, I just don't think if the market breaks out, as I'm proposing next week, I don't see how miners don't participate. So it is possible that you could interpret that weekly candle as an inverted bullish hammer. If that's true, we need to see miners break out significantly above these moving averages that you can obviously see here on the weekly candle held it back in order for it to get to the very, very bullish upside targets that I have. GLD, you'll see a very similar look, a little bit more zoomed in. There's the look of that candle. That candle doesn't look nearly as much like a gravestone doji. So could we say from the bullish perspective, we've got more of an inverted bullish hammer? That's what I'm going to go with, and you can see over the intermediate term, I would have spot gold going above $2,000 in the intermediate term. Okay, let's get into some daily charts now. So taking you into daily charts here, and I'm going to go into the names now, kind of in order. I'm going to do it more of weak to strong this time, different than what I've done the last 2 weeks. But we'll start with the major indices and ETF. So I think this candle here looked like a really nice bullish hammer candle. I had to change my short-term counting when this level right here was broken. When 36.44 was broken, it took away what I had as an even more bullish nested count. But I still have that proceeding very bullishly next week, strongly into the 3700s. And I have the possibility that before the end of 2021, that we could even see the S&P 500 at 3,800. So what's going to change my mind? Well, you've got to see more technical failure. So you've got to see this level here, 35.85, that has to be broken, which means from a moving average perspective, you're going to see a loss of the 21-day EMA, and then in kind of a stair-step progression. This would be like the proverbial hot knife through butter waterfall downward. These MAs are going to have to fail in order for us to say that we've got a significant top. Into QQQ. Now here for QQQ, it's an inside day on Friday with a bullish hammer candle. I think we're seeing, there's technical evidence that is much more in support of bullish continuation than a bearish move. Okay, let me jump back real quickly. I forgot to show you some of the weekly charts in some of the big names, and I want to just show a couple here. That Apple, interesting weekly candle. This is a doji weekly candle. I think it does communicate well representatively a little bit of the indecision in this market, but I would point out clearly here on Apple, a higher weekly low, a higher weekly high, strongly above all of these MAs that are trending up. Okay, another weekly candle that I would have you see here is Microsoft. Microsoft just continues in this sideways consolidation. When I get you into the daily chart, I think you're going to see that I think this consolidation is bullish. And then into Amazon, so zoomed out a little bit more so you can see it's a busy chart, but when a stock is as indecisive as this one, I got to show you lots of possibilities here. And there's something kind of interesting that I wanted to point out. Now, this is subtle, but I want to point out on the weekly RSI, the week that ended November 20th closed at an RSI of 50.25 at a closing price of $30.99. If I move you to the end of this week, that just closed here, December 11th, you have a very, very similar weekly low, a higher weekly close at 31.16, but a lower weekly RSI. Now, this is subtle. We call that hidden divergence. So when price moves to a similar level, but the closing price is stronger and the RSI is weaker, price is suggesting some underlying strength. Now, again, this is subtle, but from a technical perspective, we look at weight of evidence, and it's worth me pointing out that you'll see, I think that Amazon and Microsoft both could finally be waking up and due for some bigger moves. Back to the daily charts that I'll progress you through on the names that you really want to see. I did say I would go weak to strong. And the weak on big tech, you got to point to Facebook. My nested set that I was optimistic about, that you saw me post on Twitter, was busted on the Friday move down. Anyone holding weekly expiry options on Facebook, just honestly got crushed. I was fortunate to get out of any of those weeklies on Wednesdays. Disappointing move down at the end of the day. I still have a bullish count on Facebook, and I'm not going to go bearish until we see these levels right here fail. So we have significant horizontal support in the 264 to 265 range. I pointed this out briefly on Twitter. Maybe you caught it. I think this December 23rd low that just briefly pierced and closed below the 50-day SMA has a look a lot like what we just saw Friday. I think a head fake. The move that followed the November 23rd spike low was a 3% move up. So if we see this kind of head fake resolution, I think we could see Facebook move back up, challenge these MAs, and then, as I've been mentioning, this 280 horizontal pivot has had so much volatility around it. That has to be cleared decisively, as does this downward rail. We've got to get it out. We've got to get liftoff above 283 for these more bullish counts to resolve. Already talked about Amazon's hidden divergence on the weekly. There's no divergence from a bullish perspective on the daily. Other than that, I would just point out that the levels that I was saying needed to hold held. 3065 was my red line here, and we did put in a daily lower low, but that candle closed decisively above the close of Thursday's candle, and I think this clustering MA is ready to get jumped. So we're going to have to see that resolve bullishly. I want you to see on Microsoft how close a move it had on this outside day candle. Look at that clustering of the MAs. It's been a while since I've seen a stock as significant as one like Microsoft cluster its MAs so tightly together. We're talking about the 50-day, the 8, 21, and 34-day EMAs all within a span here of about 30 pennies. So this is the classic setup for what I like to call the jump the creek move. I think it's ready Monday for this to get up and challenge the 216, 217 pivot. We get above that pivot, and I would give my blue skies a head call. I think we could see Microsoft for the rest of the month challenging certainly this swing high at 228, challenging 233, and then getting over here approaching that number would then set a new all-time high for Microsoft. So that's my call there. Progressing into stronger names, we get into Google. I tweeted this out right before the close Friday. You've got here Google with a bullish engulfing daily candle back in its bull channel above the 21 EMA. I think Google could continue to be a leader here in big tech. Now, why would I put Tesla here in progression of strength? Why would I put Tesla on a negative 2.72% down day as my second strongest? Well, it's because we saw consolidation above the 8-day EMA. And that is the level, that's my trend following MA. Bears had a chance to break it down even more, and it didn't happen. So I have now switched my primary count into a bullish resolution on Tesla. Now, there is a valid bear count that I could show you on the short-term chart, and you could see it. There's also more of an kind of an intermediate bearish or an alternate short-term bearish count that would have minor 4 not done. Okay, we move into the strongest tech name, and that's just technically speaking by MA close is Apple. Google, you would argue, is actually stronger in its overall progression, but I really liked Apple's move Friday. Bullish hammer candle, an inside day, above its 8-day EMA. I think Apple could assert itself here and get it breaking out along with the S&P and the rest of tech. Okay, so daily chart still through some names, and then I'll show you some short-term things. I really like DraftKings. I just tweeted this out recently. I think DraftKings is showing some internal strength, trying to finish off a minor one. You can see where I've got it. I really like AMD. I'm in calls on all three of these names that I'm going to show you here in progression. DraftKings, AMD, really like a bullish candle above its 8-day EMA, and Roku, that I just recently had to upgrade a possible price target towards 400. I'd initially thought maybe this was a topping candle, but it comes back with the bullish engulfing and then continuation upwards on Friday. So I am still in Roku, both in my long-term investing account and also I'm holding December 18 call options. Now we get into other stocks that are forming the core of my longer-term portfolio. I may have to adjust price targets on Honeywell. It put in a bullish engulfing candle on Friday. It's hit topping targets, but I'm going to have to go back and rethink that maybe Honeywell is just going to keep marching up, and possibly this minor 3 target here for Honeywell is too conservative. Boeing, I want to show you what healthy bullish consolidation looks like. Look at Boeing. This consolidation that you could say it's either a bull flag or a bull pennant above the 8-day EMA. That's what I like to see for bullish consolidation on Boeing. I increase my long-term holding. Boeing's not one that I'm going to aggressively buy calls. I don't think the return on that from a premium perspective is worth it like it is with big tech. But I really, really like Boeing as a play in my longer-term account. Okay, now we get into a questionable one I just tweeted out about is Zoom. I had been bearish on Zoom, but I did kind of like the price action here on Zoom. A chance to break down, but it did not. I wouldn't think that Zoom wouldn't participate in a bullish breakout if we get it Monday. There are some compelling upside targets. If anyone entered into call options on Zoom at the end of this week, I couldn't begrudge you for a second for that. Okay, the holding in my account that I was disappointed about is Walmart. But you know what? Because Walmart traded into on Friday this high at 146.60, I simply had to adjust my account to something even more bullish. And Walmart bulls are going to like that from an Elliott wave perspective. This is the only way I could see it, is that it's still setting up a progression of 1s and 2s. Now, it also could have satisfied a minor 4 target. If it needs to go lower, we've got some of the lower targets in place. I'm not yet willing to throw in the towel here on Walmart. Okay, let me get you just briefly into a silver miner. I've been showing this 1-2 setup, and it is there in miners as well. This is First Majestic Silver, which is well representative of kind of a bigger tier name in silver juniors. And I think my bullish thesis suggests that what we just saw is just a typical Elliott wave pullback within a much bigger move. We need to see metals and miners participate if we see a stock breakout. They've been moving together, and I just think that needs to just continue. Okay, to wrap things up, I do want to show you some other names briefly. I really like Netflix. I missed out on buying Netflix calls. I should have on Friday. If you did, I think you're going to get rewarded. I really, really like this setup here on Netflix as kind of that nested 1-2 within a bigger minute wave 3 count. Now, some other names I haven't really highlighted. Teladoc here, one that people haven't been talking about. Is it going to turn out that, you know, when chatter and the stock get quiet, it's time to get in? Maybe this is one to consider early in the week. I have it within a nested bullish 1 and 2, and I do like that candle that showed a little bit of continuation Friday. Okay, now some that I'm questionable about. Fastly, I don't have an EW account on this. All I want to point out here on Fastly is that it has just retraced to a 50% fib on its big declining move from October, and it's hesitating. All I just want to point out here is that kind of hesitation sometimes with a suspect looking candle here that could be a gravestone doji, I'm not completely sold on Fastly from a bullish perspective, but we just need to see it get past some of these fib resistance markers in order for it to move up in a more aggressive way. And Pinterest. Had a couple questions about Pinterest. By my EW counting, Pinterest has done everything to satisfy a topping pattern. So I'm a little bit more nervous here, but we see consolidation here on Pinterest that's in a healthy way above the 8-day EMA. So it certainly could participate in a bullish move up to those targets that you see. I just real briefly do want to show you some very short-term things on the names that you're probably most interested in. I do want to talk just briefly about the valid bear setup. Now, I think I've shown I don't think technicals are there to be bearish yet. But from an Elliott wave perspective, if you were a bear, you had an ideal Elliott wave setup on Friday. From Wednesday, we have a minute one pullback, and this, the bears would say, this is your bull trap here. So we've got this as what you would, I guess you would say, bear flag, bull trap, and it's ready for a tumble. Now, listen, I'm only saying that from a possible EW perspective. I am not bearish. I am positioned strongly for a bullish move, but I just need to alert you to that possibility from a count perspective if something surprising happens to the negative side on Monday. Okay, just a few other short-term counts that I wanted to point out to you. Get into Microsoft, challenging this 200 period MA. I talked about Microsoft needing jump the creek. This is also what I'm talking about. That clustering of MAs, this 200 period trend following MA, right in line with its daily MA cluster. I'm looking for the jump the creek move. And I did want to briefly show Tesla because of the possibility of the bearish move. I do see a valid 5-wave down count for Tesla into an ABC up, which would have then a wave 1 down, 2 to a big 3 down. Now that again is the bearish EW count, but I think from a technical perspective, I like the hold here of the 200 period 15-minute MA. I like the hold of the 8-day EMA. And I really like the potential of a 1 expanded flat 2 setup to Tesla. I don't think it's done. Okay, so exciting things for me that to summarize for you. I hope you see perspective each way, at least from an Elliott wave counting. I do still think the weighted evidence is on the bull side, and I think if it moves, I think it moves big. So excited for Monday. Let's see what happens. As always, thanks for the likes. Thanks for the follows. Spread the word about Pikes Peak trades, and let's all be ready. So have a great weekend, and check in with you out in the FinTwit world early next week.